Today we have the pleasure of getting to hear from Cassi MacQueen. She is the Executive Director for the Deschutes Children's Foundation. They are a great support and resource with other nonprofits in the area, children-based, that they help bring them together and help them find resources they need. It was started in 1990. And they provide classroom, office space, free facility management to multiple nonprofits, and they have 4 different community campuses in Central Oregon. Cassi joined in December of 2023, although she has a huge background in this role with over 15 years of experience in all across the country. So they're lucky to have her, and we're lucky to hear from her today.
All right, I'm bringing my phone up here to keep me honest on time, because I think what you all will see is I can talk about work that I love all day long. Like you've already heard, my name is Cassi MacQueen, and I'm really honored and privileged to get to be here with you all today and speak. But honestly, I'm most proud to say that I have spent my entire career in nonprofit management, and it's something that has just spoken to my heart for so long. I was born and raised in Dallas, Texas. No, you will not hear an accent from me unless you either get me drinking or get me back to Texas, but I promise you it's there. But I started with nonprofits in Texas in arts education, working with kiddos who are in some really impoverished areas, getting to give them access to arts where they didn't have it otherwise. That led me to teaching in some of the most impoverished schools in Dallas, Texas. And I don't probably have to describe that to you a lot to make you kind of understand what that would look like, but it was a really formative time for me. I was in college, I was doing everything, and I was making this commute every day from Plano to Dallas, and driving past these mansions, and driving past these incredible home complexes. And then all of a sudden, it would stop, right? I would cross this one road, and it was like I was in a different country all of a sudden, and coming into these schools with fellow artists, and we were building a program for kids who didn't have art otherwise. What I did not know is that we were doing so much more at that time. It was about my 3rd day in my classroom, and I could not understand why my floor was filthy. End of the day, it was littered with food, just littered with food. Come to find out, by Friday, a kiddo came up to me and said, "Oh, my milk pot." Your milk pot. Okay, I'm not quite certain what we're talking about here. They were stuffing their pockets full of every last piece of food that they could from that lunch, whether it be crackers, enchiladas, a carton of milk. And that's when I came to realize that yes, we were showing arts, yes, we were bringing kind of a new side of life to these kids, but really we were providing them safe access to be themselves, when the reality is they might not have that at home. They didn't know if they had food at home, let alone if they had the space to really enjoy who they were. Fast forward, and like Amber said, I've done a lot since then. After that time working in Dallas, I started working for the American Red Cross. And I worked nationally across the country, from everything from working in the development team and raising money. I worked in blood services, where if you've ever donated at a blood drive, you know there are people behind the scenes that are working with the sponsors and coordinating the volunteers and all of that. And I ended my career at the Red Cross as the Chief Operating Officer of Oregon, Washington, and Alaska. And let me tell you where that inspired me. That was an incredible opportunity to see what can truly happen when you bring together volunteers, when you bring together professionals, and when you have a crisis at hand. I was able to deploy to Hurricane Sandy, to wildfires in California, to the Eagle Creek fire up near the Portland area, and really see people in their most critical time. Right? And seeing people mobilize to do incredible things, watching a shelter get stood up in a matter of hours, you know, watching folks come in and rescue folks after a single family home fire, or even hearing incredible stories of folks that had received blood donations. During that time at the Red Cross, I had the privilege of filling in down in Bend, Oregon. We had an executive director who very quickly needed to leave, and they said, "We need somebody down there tomorrow. Guess what you're doing, Cassi? How do you feel about driving to Bend?" Give me one summer of driving down to Central Oregon, and I quickly realized that Portland was not the end-all be-all, and I needed to come down here. And that's how how I kind of got to Central Oregon. I had been waiting for the right opportunity to find a nonprofit that needed work and really loved that crisis 24/7 mentality. How can we do this all the time? People are always in need. And that's where I came down and I joined Saving Grace, who I'm certain most of you know. That's the domestic violence and sexual assault agency down here in Central Oregon, and had the privilege of leading that organization for over 5 years. During COVID, which I say is like dog years, like I think I deserve like a 20-year pin for getting the organization through that, and really saw that despite the fact that we're not in a 2008 recession, despite the fact that we have all of this money and wealth here in Central Oregon, that's a really hard time to be a nonprofit. It's not easy. I know it's not easy for any businesses, right? We're all feeling inflation, we're all feeling high employment costs, we're all feeling high costs in general. But I was looking there and saying, hey, we're an organization that's been around for a long time, we've got an incredible team, we've got really diverse funding, and it's really, really hard to do this work administratively. Saving Grace had been a partner of Deschutes Children's Foundation, so I knew the organization well, and I'm sure some of you all have known our various directors over the years. And when I saw this opportunity, I saw the privilege to be able to help more nonprofits fulfill their mission. And that leads me to telling you what we're all about at Deschutes Children's Foundation. Our mission is to provide space and support to nonprofits that are doing critical work with kids and families. We were created over 30 years ago when the community saw a need. Essentially, it was the city of Bend, kind of actually Deschutes County, a Rotary Club, and a bunch of volunteers who came together and said, we need a place for nonprofits. Central Oregon is growing. How do we do this? And that's where we started our first campus, the Rosie Barris campus in Bend. It's pretty old if you've ever been by there, if you know Kids Center. The Kids Center building is on that campus, and Deschutes Children's Foundation actually did the capital campaign and built that building for Kids Center. So every time folks are like, what does DCF do? I always remind them, if you know Kids Center, if you know Mountain Star, if you know Saving Grace, if you know Big Brothers and Sisters, if you know CASA, the list could go on and on and on, you know what we do. So the Rosie Barris was our first campus. Fast forward 30 years later, we've got 4 collaborative community campuses here across Central Oregon. And they look different. Like I said, our Rosie Barris is our oldest. We've got some really great partners there, like CASA, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Community Solutions, and Kids Center. We have our campus here in Redmond, it was gifted to us by the county, and they said, we see a need here. Can you come in? Can you bring nonprofits in? Can you help them thrive? So it's right in the heart of downtown Redmond, across the street from the new library, and we have an entire aisle, like an entire back hallway of nothing but Head Start classrooms. And that facility is where I feel like you can see our mission really shine, right? Because essentially there's this opportunity that families are walking in, they're taking their kids to Head Start, and they're met with a campus advocate right at that door who says, how are you today? What do you need? How else can I connect you? And it's not uncommon for a family to then get connected with Healthy Families of the High Desert, to get connected with Saving Grace, to get connected with Every Child Central Oregon. So families can come in and get all the services that they need in one stop. Now, on top of that, we've got our East Bend campus, which is one of our newest locations that we built back in 2008. Another massive campus that has Head Start, Mountain Star, FAN, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Treehouse Therapies, again, the list goes on. And we've got a location down in Prineville as well. Between those 4 collaborative community campuses, we have 22 nonprofits that partner with Deschutes Children's Foundation. What does that mean? It means they have to have a mission where they're serving kids and families, and they have to want to come in and be a collaborative partner. Because here's what we hear all the time from businesses. Well, you know, there's so many nonprofits here in Central Oregon. How are they using their money? How can I support all of them? You know, is there any duplication here? And at Deschutes Children's Foundation, that's what we're all about, is making sure that the nonprofits that are doing critical work have the resources and the capacity to do it. And we do kind of the not fun stuff for them, right? We have these buildings. Our partners don't pay rent. They pay a very small usage fee, which is essentially pennies on the dollar compared to what you can get space for in Bend. On top of that, they get all of their utilities, all of their maintenance, all of their property management, and our staff who are providing technical assistance, who are doing roundtables, and who are those campus advocates that face, that receptionist at every one of these locations. And that's where we can really impact, where we can really bolster. So these nonprofits can use their critical dollars going towards their mission. They can use their staff capacity working on the very many things that's always on a nonprofit's plate, and they can let that side of just doing the property management to us. It's really critical. It's really critical that we're here in Central Oregon right now, because we are seeing essentially two kind of crises at the same time. First of all, we're seeing the highest child poverty rates that we have ever seen in Deschutes County. Ever, ever, ever. We kind of slipped a threshold back in 2019, and then it's only gotten worse since COVID, where we are just seeing the highest child poverty rates. And one thing that I hear from our partners over and over again is that the need has grown. We don't have enough staff. We can't keep up with the clients. We have a 6-month waiting list. We have, oh gosh, Big Brothers Big Sisters has a list of 80 kiddos that are waiting for matches. CASA back in December, we're doing 5 child visits a day and had a wait list. It's the same with Kids Center. It's the same with Saving Grace. The need from our community is massive. It's truly just massive as we've grown. Now, there's an additional challenge on top of that, where nonprofits are facing one of the hardest funding times that we've really seen. And again, I've been through the recessions, I've seen a number of changes in my almost 20 years of experience. But the Nonprofit Association of Oregon came around, they go across the whole state every January, and they do what they call a road show. They talk about the state of nonprofits, what's going on, what's coming up. This is the first time in my entire career that I've heard the Nonprofit Association of Oregon talk about what they're calling a fiscal cliff. And they had some really dynamic research behind it. We're seeing a massive decrease in federal and state funding, something I very much felt at Saving Grace. And funding from the feds and from the state, it takes years to trickle, right? So typically you're kind of feeling those bottom line effects, sometimes even 4 to 5 years after laws, after administrations, after things get passed. So nonprofits are getting this tight squeeze on their federal contracts and their government money. Then we're seeing the lowest amount of individual donors that they had seen since 2008 as well. They had seen a massive decrease in donor dollars coming to nonprofits, a decrease in donor retention. So, okay, I've been a donor for you, but all of a sudden, I just can't anymore. It's a really hard time for my family. That $25 a month, I can't do it. And then also seeing the folks who were donated needing to decrease their gifts. And that was a really interesting thing, because Nonprofit Association of Oregon said we've never seen this with the donor database all at once. Then on top of that, and if you're in business, it's not an easy time to be a business right now. And then you've got the highest capita of nonprofits doing this work in a small town coming and saying, hey, we need another donation. Hey, can you donate to our silent auction? Hey, we need a volunteer day. And so nonprofits are being hit at the corporate level, at the individual level, and at the grant level, all at the same time, while their need is going up. And while you all know this, our employment costs have gone up here a lot in Bend. I'm grateful for that. We need people in the nonprofit sector who are professionals to get paid a living wage, but it's really hard when Burger King and Safeway are paying $20 an hour to compete as a nonprofit. And again, that's when we come in. We come in and we say, hey, we know that this is hard for you right now. We know that you are doing critical work every day. Where can we lighten your load? How can we keep your costs down? How can we find cost sharing? How can we be a megaphone for you so you don't have to spend your staff time and your dollar time doing work that really takes you away from your mission? It's been an incredible 6 months that I've been there to go around to all of the different campuses, to connect with people, and to see how our mission really shines. It's one thing to talk about cost savings, and again, it's not super exciting, right? It's not puppies and kids and rainbows and all of that. But when you walk into one of our campuses, you see those donations. You see that mission truly shining, because it is not uncommon for someone to present right here in Redmond, in the heart of downtown, saying, I just know I need help, but I don't know what kind of organization can help me right now. Or, hey, I know that you work with nonprofits, I don't even know where to start. And it's not uncommon that someone who's connected with FAN then gets walked down to Head Start, and then they refer them to Big Brothers and Big Sisters, and then Big Brothers and Big Sisters does an interview, and they get referred to Saving Grace. we are seeing this incredible opportunity, and there's nothing else like it in the state of Oregon. The closest is kind of a restorative justice center that's in Washington County, where there are multiple nonprofits together, but we are bringing people together so they can have that collaboration, but more importantly, that they can have a space that feels safe for them. You all know nonprofits well. You've got this commitment to serving our community. It's not easy work. It's really not, when your days are met by talking about violence or talking about incredible need, and some of these nonprofits are large, but some are quite small, have a 1 or 2 person staff, and feeling that isolation that we all felt during COVID, right, of doing that work day in and day out. And so when you come to our campuses, you see that really shine. You see how the professionals that do that work have a place where they can work with others, they can talk with others. You see the families who are coming in and getting multiple services, but you see the kids. You see the kids really thriving. And that's what's kind of connected me and kept me at DCF. We know that the kids are our future. We all say this all the time. We're looking at this next generation growing up. But again, we're seeing the highest child poverty rates, the highest adverse childhood experiences, if you guys have ever heard about ACEs before, and all of these things change the makeup of our community. They change the way that people can thrive. And so that's what we're all about. We're all about coming in, stopping the cycle from the beginning, and helping the experts do their important work. Now, it's a mission that we've had for over 30 years, but we're looking at it even differently now. Because again, this work is really hard. So I'm really excited to share that since I've been at the organization, we've been able to do even more for these nonprofit partners. So yes, it's one thing that it's great that you're in this one space. It's great that you don't have to spend much money for your space, but where are those gaps? Where are those holes? And so what we've done is we've come in and we've provided quarterly roundtables where we're bringing all of these 22 nonprofits together, where we can talk about, okay, what are the challenges? What tools do we need? What do we need to do next? Our first quarter of the year was with marketing and development, which was a great conversation because, again, as you all know, there's an event every other weekend, it seems like, in this town. How can we talk about this? What are best practices? How can we collaborate? What does that look like? Our next roundtable is all for leadership coming together. Most of our nonprofits are split between whether their fiscal year is that June or that July through June, or a December through January through December. But bringing them together to hear about their budget deficits, to hear about their staffing challenges, and really to hear about their capacity challenges so we can help advocate for them. On top of that, we're creating these opportunities to be a megaphone, essentially, for these nonprofits, whether it's sharing their missions, sharing their awareness weeks. We bring in various political leaders from our area, our state representatives, our local representatives, so all these nonprofits can talk to them at one time. And now we're working with the Nonprofit Association of Oregon to provide training for these nonprofits, because that's the other hard thing that they have. Hey, we're required to, as a nonprofit, to do this training or to do that training, and we don't know how to start. How can you do that? So we're able to offer them more. We're able to offer them more. And again, I think that's where we have to come in. You all know this so well as a community because you all are here week in and week out giving your dollars, showing up for folks. But the reality is, as Central Oregon continues to grow, we know that this gap continues to widen as well. It just does. And as our population increases, the need increases. But the fact of the matter is, if these nonprofits aren't here to serve kids of child abuse, to serve folks of domestic violence, to provide early education to kids, there's nobody else willing to come in and do it, right? It's not something that our city can step up and do. It's not something that our county can step up to do. And it would be a massive hole here in Central Oregon if we didn't have these incredible nonprofits. So what I love to say about DCF is when you support Deschutes Children's Foundation, and your donation today of $250 is an incredible, incredible piece, an incredible start, but you're getting to help 22 other nonprofits do their work, focus on their mission, and provide critical services here. My goal here is that Deschutes Children's Foundation will only make this work easier for our nonprofit partners, because last year alone, 1 out of every 10 citizens in Deschutes County receive services at a Deschutes Children's Foundation location. I mean, that like stopped me in my tracks when I joined here. So you mean, based on, I mean, tens of thousands of on-campus visits, that doesn't even talk about all the outreach that these nonprofits are doing. But 1 in 10 residents of Deschutes County needed to get services at one of our buildings. We don't have an option of going away. And we don't have an option of doing less for our partners. So I want to thank you for what you do in the community. I want to thank you for supporting nonprofits, but most of all, I want to thank you for supporting kids and families. They're the lifeblood of our community, and it's not easy right now. And we'll continue doing really incredible work for them for a long, long time to come. So with that, I want to say, do you all have any questions for me? I clearly love to talk, but yeah, bring it to me.
You do love to talk.
I do.
Very
I do.
Your energy. It's pretty cool. We have, it's reported that we have about 200 homeless kids in Redmond alone. What's the impact does that have on you and the partner? Everyone coming, trying to get services, for example, in the summertime, in school.
Yep.
Where are those kids going? What are they doing?
Yeah, well, and again, that's where I think nonprofits are feeling that squeeze even more, because even in just the last 5-6 years that I've been in this community, what I've seen over and over again is the dollar amount that it takes to serve one person, right? Let's call them one client at a nonprofit, is only going up. Because they need more services, right? At Saving Grace, it wasn't that you just needed a safety plan, it's that you needed a safety plan, and you needed housing assistance, and you needed child care, and you needed, and you needed, and you needed, and it went on and on. And so I think as we're seeing that increase in homelessness rate, we're seeing that increase of asks to these nonprofits that aren't always providing that, right? Nonprofits that's not always the solution. We kind of know here in Central Oregon, we have a shortage of shelters for families. We have a shortage of just services for houseless folks. And so what that means is these nonprofits are having to figure out how to provide wraparound services, because if you don't have your needs met, right, you can't even get to A, B, C, and D. You got to start here. And that's where their dollars get stretched further. And so that's where, again, we're trying to come in and say, how can we maximize your dollars? How can we maximize your mission? And where can we take that administrative capacity so you can do that? But honestly, it's where we're having to come together as leaders and say, how do we solve this? Because it's the highest rate that we've ever seen, and there's no indication that it's slowing down or changing anytime soon. So to answer your question, Ron, it's really just making that work harder while there's no additional funding for most of these nonprofits to have. But yeah, it's something that we see. It's increasing Head Start numbers, it's increasing early intervention numbers because of that high need. I think I probably have time for one more question. Yeah.
So how does your organization differ than from United Way?
Oh, that's a great question. So we don't provide, we do provide funding. So we have a grant program called the Every Kid Fund where we provide after-school scholarships for organizations, but we're not a pass-through organization, which is typically what United Way does, right? You donate your dollars, and then they kind of take a piece for United Way, and then they allocate it to all of these. Essentially, when you give to DCF, it's going to mission-driven work. Whether that be to have capital improvements and beautiful sites for these nonprofits, whether it be that training, it's essentially made to bolster them. We don't do any direct services ourselves, and Ron and I were talking about this beforehand. That gets a little complicated. Like, wait, Deschutes Children's Foundation? Are you a foundation? Actually, we're a nonprofit. You know, actually, we don't work directly with kids, but we make it easier for those nonprofits too. So we don't take any kind of cut of that money in that way as we're passing stuff on. Actually, the money that we give out comes 100% from endowment. Every penny goes out to the community. And we have a really lean team, 3 in our admin office, but between the 3 of us, we have over 50 years of nonprofit experience to make sure that these nonprofits have everything that they need. I want to be respectful of your time, and obviously I care about nonprofits and giving back very much, so I'll be around if you want to talk more, but thank you for supporting Deschutes Children's Foundation, and if you're interested in doing more with us, we need you, and so do our nonprofits, and I'd love to connect you. So thank you so much.
Cassie's speaking my language. But Cassie, this is just a token of our appreciation for you taking time out of your busy day, and so this is by a local artisan. So one more. Thank you. All right, guys. Wow, what an awesome presentation. Okay, guys, in honor of Cassie and
I think it's because the glass is dark on top.
Okay.
And then I've
Children
got
are our
the
most
tonneau cover
valuable
in the back
resource.
closed, so it makes the
Children
window
are our
shut.
most valuable resource. Herbert Hoover.
Ah.
And with that,